Matt Hill from Start9 told me the other day, he said, we don't have Bitcoin on our balance sheet. He said, Bitcoin is our balance sheet. The best outcomes take a really long time. And where else are you going to get 4,000x on your money? It's very difficult to do that, and I'm not talking about meme stocks and JPEGs and all of these type of things. Like, these are real companies. And that's kind of the power of angel investing, are those outsized returns. I think it's fun to make your own decisions. And we put the fun in funding. That's right, funding Bitcoin startups. That's what we do. That's what we're all about here. Bitcoin is now everywhere in so many different industries. If you want Web3, Web4, Web5, I don't even know what web number it's on, but if you want all of that type of stuff, that is not us. You have no idea what's going to happen. And the thing is it takes a really long time.
Before we get started with all the topics, maybe give the viewers and the listeners who listen and watch here some background of who you are and, most importantly, why you are excited about Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Mike Jarmoz. My friends call me Muzz. And my company is Lightning Ventures, and we put the fun in funding. That's right, funding Bitcoin startups. That's what we do. That's what we're all about here. So Lightning Ventures was started in 2021, and it's a little bit different than a traditional VC. With a traditional VC, you give them a whole bunch of money, and then they decide what to do with it, which is very cool and all. But if you like to make your own decisions, and if you like to review deals yourself, what we do that's different is we have a syndicate. And a syndicate is really just a word for a group of investors who invest on a deal-by-deal basis into the best Bitcoin startups that there is for lower minimums. So for everyone who's in Lightning Ventures, which it's free to join, you can go to ltng.ventures and fill out one of those forms there. We'll send you a custom invite. And you will get emails that say Lightning Ventures invited you to invest in XYZ company. And you can look at some of our portfolio companies there. So for a low minimum of, say, $1,000 USD, you can be an angel investor and get started angel investing in these companies. Obviously, you can invest more. That's up to you. But that's really what we focus on. So if you're looking for exposure to the Bitcoin startup ecosystem, and you want to invest, that is pretty much the best way to do it, besides going to one of these big Bitcoin focused venture funds and writing a much larger check in the 6-figure range, maybe 100 or 250,000 for a minimum for some of these funds. This gives you a way to have more control over your dollars and get to pick on a deal by deal basis. So that's Lightning Ventures. And most recently, almost a year ago today, we received a FINRA license from a crowdfunding portal license where retail investors can invest into Bitcoin startups, projects, open source projects. That's really what we're focused on. So if you're in Europe, you've probably seen something like Crowdcube. Crowdcube is a very popular one in Europe. If you're in Israel, there's one called Our Crowd. If you're here in the US, things like Start Engine, WeFunder, Republic, those are all similar, except they don't just focus on open source and Bitcoin startups. They kind of focus on everything. So our niche, what we want to do is just focus on open source and Bitcoin companies. So the minimums would be even less on a platform like this. And retail, you could invest maybe a couple of $100 into some of these startups instead of maybe $1,000 minimum. So as if $1,000 wasn't low enough, you could invest less on Thunder Funder, and that's thunderfunder.com. We're about to push a really big new update to the platform there. So there's going to be lots of changes in the profile. It's going to be a really cool LinkedIn for the Bitcoiner, and lots of fun stuff that is coming there. So those are the two main products from Lightning Ventures, is the syndicate side of things, which is for an accredited investor. I don't know if we're going to talk about that. And then Thunder Funder, which is for retail. But both of them democratize access to plebs and whales alike that want to get some exposure to the burgeoning startup ecosystem of the Bitcoin world. And that's really what I'm focused on.
That's super interesting. I love the fun in funding. Why did you say that? Do you have some fun aspect of like democratizing a love, but like where's the fun?
Well, I think it's fun to make your own decisions. So I was never a fund kind of guy. I'm not really like, I want to give a bunch of my money to this fund manager and have them invest it for me. That's great. A lot of people don't have time to review every deal because it takes time. It takes time to sit there and make your own decisions and dial up your deal flow and where are you getting deals and opportunities from and all of that. So not everyone has time for that. So a fund is much better for them. But if you like to make your own decisions and invest your own money, especially small checks, this is pretty much the best way to do it. And anyone who knows the other Bitcoin-focused venture capitalists in the space know that we are definitely a lot more fun. So that's where putting the fun in funding comes in, especially when you're working with founders or you're working with new investors. A lot of this stuff is really boring. How does a safe note convert into equity? And what's a liquidation preference? And how do pro rata rights work? And all of these things are like really kind of boring VC kind of terms and concepts that you do need to know and learn. But I like to try and make them fun, whether that's working with a founder and explaining it to him or helping him through a financing or a term sheet, or an angel investor who's just getting started and wants to know, what do I do? Shut up and take all my money. We don't shut up and take all your money. You get to invest your money, which I think is one of the biggest differences and fun part about it.
It's really interesting. I love the democratizing the angel investing part of it. So just so that I understand it correct, so you look for deals, and if there's an interesting deal, you send them to the members of the fund, and they can then decide deal by deal basis if they want to be part of it or not.
Right. So you can think of it as on a deal by deal basis, you are kind of the venture capitalist, and the difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist is angel investors are investing their own money. That's an important distinction between the two. So venture capitalists, they're often called GPs. Those are general partners. They raise a fund and the fund has LPs, which are limited partners. And limited partners give their funds to the GP, and then the GP decides what to do with it, right? Angel investors are really maybe they're former tech executives or operators, maybe they're ex-founders, maybe they're working themselves, maybe they're somewhat retired. They're taking their own money and they're investing their own money either directly into the startup or via these various syndicates, which they call SPVs, special purpose vehicles, and they participate that way. So that's kind of the difference between a VC and an angel investor.
I never knew that. I always was just two terms for the same thing, but I thank you so much for. I've literally I used those two terms, venture capitalist and angel investor, as kind of like this is the same thing.
No. So like somebody like Brad Mills, I don't know if he's ever been on your show or not, but Brad Mills is an angel investor because he invests his own money into startups. Whether you help kind of post investment or not, whether you're proactive versus reactive, whether you're checking in with the founder, seeing if you can add value, all that stuff comes into play afterwards. But, somebody like, Ego Death, they were in the news. They just raised a big $100 million fund. They are venture capitalists. They are not angel investors.
Oh, because they are raising money and then deploy that money. An angel investor made his own money, and with that money, he invests. I get that difference. Yeah. Please go ahead.
And angel investors get more of a say, right? You get to decide. It's your money. You decide, as I like to say, what you're investing in and not investing in. And the venture capitalists do that on behalf for you. So the way that it would work in a syndicate, or at least the way that it started with Lightning Ventures and in a lot of syndicates, is we raised a pilot fund. So a pilot fund was very small. It was friends and family. And I was deploying that as a venture capitalist into these companies. And simultaneously, the company that's maybe raising $1 or $2 million, there's an extra bit that maybe is available or not full. So alongside your investment as the fund lead, you can take another 100 or 200,000 or so, and you can offer that to the syndicate to provide access to the broader network of superstars and all stars that you have. Now, sometimes the company is raising $1 million and they just don't have room. So there is no opportunity for the network to go ahead and invest because the round is full. But in many cases, depends on the market and everything else, there might be room. So you're investing through your fund, and then you also have this allocation that you're able to put out to your group. And speaking of putting it out to your group, I like to say, Lightning Ventures is the world's largest Bitcoin focused angel investing network. Woo! And we have a lot of really smart people in there. I try to get all of our, founders in there, and someone like yourself would be fantastic, and it doesn't matter whether you're investing, Robin, in every deal or not. It's not like, oh man, Muzz sent me 12 deals and I haven't invested in any. That doesn't matter. But once you see something that looks really good and you want to have the founder on your show, or you're looking to potentially help this company, it might lead to an advisor role for you. It might lead to something else. So that's why the primary focus of Lightning Ventures, one of the primary focuses, but certainly building out the network with qualified, amazing people is super important. Okay. It's super important to have really, really amazing people, because when our companies do put up, flash a bat signal, so to speak, and need some help with something, we're able to blast that out to a couple of thousand people who have all been vetted and cleared and everything else, and say, hey, does anyone have an expert in this space? Can anyone help with this? XYZ founder is looking to do this. And, a lot of times we get some really, really great intros and stuff from our network, and they're able to roll up their sleeves and help these companies. And I know the companies appreciate it, and it comes in handy. And not necessarily every venture capital firm does that or is able to do that or wants to do that. Some VCs, they write a check and then they kind of just disappear. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. Peter Thiel, Founders Fund, they have a core tenant. It's part of their thesis where after they invest, they don't do anything. They stay out of the way. If the founder specifically needs help with something or reaches out, or maybe there's a board vote or a decision or a governance sort of situation, they will get involved, but they specifically don't engage. They don't meddle in it. And that's just how they do it, So all VCs kind of handle it differently.
I want to definitely talk about the changing roles once we have a Bitcoin standard and venture capitalist. If you are an angel investor and your hurdle rate is fiat versus your hurdle rate is Bitcoin, there's a lot of things changing. But first, I want to get one more question in that we kind of forgot, and the question is why you're excited about Bitcoin in general.
Well, that's a pretty easy one. And, it's basically the internet in, 1998, pretty much. So you had all of these startups and companies and, everything that was coming. You had all the browsers, you had the hardware, you had Microsoft, you had the ISPs and AOL and Cisco systems and, the Amazons and Googles, and everything that was happening around the internet was where fortunes were made and lost too, right? In the dot-com bubble. It has to be a real business. That's a whole nother discussion. But I feel like that's where we're at with Bitcoin right now. And if Bitcoin goes the way that we all think it's going to go, or it's going now, then these founders and companies that are building on, around, and with Bitcoin are going to have massive outcomes. And honestly, it's a lot easier for a company to go from a $20 million valuation to a $200 million valuation than it is from Bitcoin to go from 115,000 to 1.1 million. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, right? I mean, we all know that that will happen one day. It's going to happen, but in a rapid amount of time, to have the kind of outsized outcome that you get from some of these early stage companies, it's just far greater. And I've seen it happen in my own angel investing portfolio. Not in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's very nascent, as well as my investments in the Bitcoin space, even though there's 45 or 50 of them, are very nascent as well. But my own personal portfolio and everything else, and AI and robotics and you name it, I've seen companies go and do 100x in 2 years. Okay. And I think that that would be a lot for Bitcoin to do that right now. So I'm excited because I think that we're just getting started. I don't even think that we've gotten started yet. And if we're talking about actual real outcomes, there aren't too many in the Bitcoin world. You have, Fold, which is a publicly traded company. And I was lucky enough to invest in Fold, in their seed round before I started Lightning Ventures. And that's going to be one of these exits that a lot of people point to because it is a pure play Bitcoin exit in the public space. And that is going to be a very good outcome. And, you know, I sold one Bitcoin at $10,000 in October of 2020 to invest in that Fold seed round. And I can tell you that it has outpaced the price of Bitcoin today. I don't know if that'll be the case. It's still locked up. I'm very bullish on the company and I love the founder and I'm not like waiting to dump it. But look what happened in the meantime. You know, Bitcoin ripped up to 65 or 70,000 and it crashed down to 15 or 16,000 and it sat around and it did all that it could do. And a feature for me and not a bug is when you do angel investing, you can't sell really. I mean, there are some, you know, very limited liquidity options and secondary markets. And depending on the situation, okay, maybe there's a way to take a little bit of money off the table. But most of the time, once you write that check, you're done. That's it. There's no opening up the stock app on your phone and checking it every day and how's my investment in Strike doing or whatever. It doesn't really work that way. All you can do is support the company and cheer them on. And that's kind of the end of it. So for me, that's good because I'm not a very good trader. I'm not very good at, you know, buying a stock and then watching it and forced with these decisions. Do I buy more? Do I sell half? Do I buy a little bit more? Like, I don't like that. So after you made a certain number of these investments, you just kind of wait until something happens in your portfolio and then you have an outcome. So Fold is a good one that people are going to point to. And, you know, something like Coinbase, you know, if you invested in Coinbase's Series A, well, especially their seed round, but their Series A was their first priced round, which I think they just sold Bitcoin then, by the way. If you invested in Coinbase back then in 2013 or so, I mean, you got those shares for like 12 cents, you know, 8 cents. I think it went public at 400. You know, it's trading around 400 today. That also took like 10 plus years. You know, the best outcomes take a really long time, you know, and where else are you going to get 4,000x on your money? It's very difficult to do that, you know, and I'm not talking about meme stocks and JPEGs and all of these type of things. Like, these are real companies. And that's kind of the power of angel investing, are those outsized returns. Now, full disclaimer, okay, and I know I'm talking all over this thing. Full disclaimer is the odds of that company at 20 million going to zero is astronomically higher than Bitcoin going to zero. Okay. So that's the thing is, yeah, you might in 2 years time, that company is worth 800 million. Okay. That definitely does happen. I've seen it myself. I've experienced that. But at the same time, Bitcoin isn't going to zero. So when you think about it in Bitcoin terms, it doesn't always go great. And that depends on cycles, and that depends on timing. That depends on the IPO markets and a lot of other factors, interest rates. Okay. So it doesn't always go wonderfully. But it can over a time period. Tim Draper has this story that he likes to tell where he, invested in this company and sold some Bitcoin, and it was a wonderful exit. He got back I don't know, 100x his money. But he measured it in Bitcoin terms had he not sold the Bitcoin. And he was like, oh, this is terrible. It was 5,000 Bitcoins down to 80, or whatever the number was at the time. Right. So I think that over a time period, a lot of it's going to outperform. But it doesn't mean that I don't think Bitcoin is going to rip, and Bitcoin isn't the safer play, but it's certainly what I like to think of as the best way to complement your HODL position and take advantage of some of the upside from these companies.
Yeah, there's this extremely important difference between, for me, Bitcoin is now the new savings rate. It is the new ETF. It's the new real estate. It's the new whatever you use to save your money and just like put it there. So that's my safe haven. That's where probably most people should put their money and just like let it sit and like don't touch it. And then looking at venture capital or like looking at angels, now I understand the difference because of you. Looking at an angel play and seeing like, oh, can I have some small equity position maybe in a company, or can I get involved in some sort of sense in companies? That's kind of the active investment. So it's like active versus passive. And for me, it sounds crazy for normal people, like for non-Bitcoiners, it sounds crazy to see Bitcoin as a savings vehicle and a passive investment, but I see it as that, and I see it the same way. Like right now, it's like, okay, I have my Bitcoin, but I'm also building my company. I have the first small position in one company just literally right now, so I'm really excited about that. And this is something that I think not a lot of people are familiar. If you look at the people that are the richest in the world, there is always equity in play. Like the equity is the biggest differentiator between like where you can make you can literally just invest your own time into building a company, and you can make out of nothing millions of dollars. Like equity is the one play where you really get that crazy leverage. And if you don't build your own company, there might be existing companies that you can just invest in, maybe like €1,000, 50,000 euros, 100,000, whatever your capacity is. And you can make with that, as you said, like those 100, 200, 300x, but that's not the same as the savings in Bitcoin.
So when you think about donations, when you think about something like even a portfolio company, we all know and love Geyser. Geyser is great. Okay. And Geyser is, they're doing a Patreon, an uncensorable way. You look at the Canadian truckers, you look at some of that type of stuff there and ways to be supported. That's not this. Okay. There are a lot of people who like to do good for the industry and they like to support these founders. But in reality, you're making investments. You expect to do well. Right? It's not saving the rainforest here when you make an investment in one of these companies. And the wild ride that the company goes on, I mean, it's just been crazy I'm not really talking about Bitcoin companies now, but in my personal portfolio, I mean, there are companies, there was one that was the largest private company in Southeast Asia. I mean, it was worth $800 million. And one day I woke up and the front story on TechCrunch was they were out of business, and it was a zero. So just because a company and that was a lesson learned for me, because when I invested at like an $8 million valuation, and I invested again at 20 and again at 50, and I invested all the way up, and there was drones, this and that, and delivery system in Asia. And, you kind of get to that point where, oh my God, the news comes out. They just did a Series E. It's $800 billion or $800 million valuation. And then they go to zero. And I kind of, you don't really think that that's going to happen. And it is much rarer that it happens, but it's kind of a wake up call that it's never over until it's over, And then there are also the times where it really doesn't look like a company's going to make it. Like things are not looking great. They're still alive, like one of the Rocky movies or something. And it's not looking good for our character here. He's just getting battered. And then they come back and they pivot and they find product market fit. And, then they're doing better than ever and they succeed. That has happened too. And personally, I really like the experience of each company that, you are reading their updates, you are doing a post-mortem on them, maybe after they fail, and you just get to see what happened. Where did this go wrong? What happened here? And I actually really like that. And it's unique with Bitcoin founders versus traditional Silicon Valley stuff is because they won't die. They refuse to die. It's not just like, well, we're out of runway. We're shutting down, for this medical device company. We're done. We're dissolving it. The Bitcoin founders will go with no paycheck. Like they are not stopping. And I love that. And I've never seen that in any other industry.
By the way, why did you say previously 1998 for Bitcoin? Is that where you kind of see compared to the internet revolution where we are right now with Bitcoin?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, nice. It's also coincidentally my birth year. That's why I was curious. Love that you picked that one. That's really it's interesting because like this was like right before the big blow up in the .com bubble. I think that was right around the 2000 year, and it's an interesting comparison because like so much blew up there, and the few companies that actually did deliver value, they made it through, and they are now so much bigger than ever. Like, I mean, now 2000 is time flies by. It's already like 25 years ago, but it's a really interesting thing. And one thing that I also like about that, like even if you never invest in anything, I kind of like the idea of just getting deals in your inbox and just like seeing what is kind of being built and just kind of what's going on in the ecosystem. I think even if you don't even have the intention to invest, I think that's a kind of interesting newsletter that you get. Is that like how often the deals are coming in? Is it like every week? Is it every month? Or is it once a quarter?
So a couple of things. One, based on what you were saying there, as far as the blowups, you could think that we kind of had a .com burst in Bitcoin, and it was the FTX and BlockFi and all of that. It's kind of Voyager, everything else that blew up. It was kind of .com-ish, right? And the companies that survived, whether that's Unchained Capital or Strike or you name it, are going to follow the same pattern that you said there. So one of the reasons that I fell in love with angel investing in the beginning was exactly what you said. And being able to be on the tip of the sphere for all innovation across all industries. Because remember, back then, there weren't too many Bitcoin deals. Maybe I got a deal for Kraken, but that wasn't even a Bitcoin deal. I got that Fold deal and a couple of other little things here and there, but there weren't that many. So when you're dialing up your deal flow as an angel investor, there's somebody who's really, really very good at fintech in Latin America, especially. So when you join this person's group, and you're in there, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get fintech in Latin America. That's what they do. Okay. So anything that's happening down there, you're set. And then there are people who specialize in biotech. Personally, I don't like biotech. I don't like the drugs. I mean, that's a great way to lose all your money, but that's what they do. Okay. So if you are interested in that, it's there for you. And even if you're not investing in it, you get to see what they're working on, right? There are people that are just focused on space, all the space companies, and there's a bunch now too. I mean, there were a bunch then. I didn't even think, you just think of SpaceX when you think of space, but there are a ton of other space companies in space, and that's all they do. So if you are the space person and you love that industry, then you need to get in their group and you need to see what people are working on. And so if you are into Bitcoin, or all things Bitcoin, that is just Bitcoin, right? Not wrapped Bitcoin, not all of that other stuff. We've never had nothing in the Stacks ecosystem. We've never had a Stacks deal or any of these other type of things. No offense to those people, whatever you want to do, but that's not really what we're doing. So like if you wanted a Bitcoin only exchange in Brazil, we got you. Or India, we got you. These type of things, infrastructure play, things like IBEX or maybe OpenNode. Bitcoin is now everywhere in so many different industries that there's a lot. There's Bitcoin that was in healthcare with Crowd Health, or in ad tech with Slice, art in auctions with Scarce City, donations with Geyser. I mean, it's in so many different places, right? The rewards cards and gift cards and Sats back and all of that kind of fun stuff. That's what we focus on. So if you're interested in that, you want to be in our group. If you want Web3, Web4, Web5, I don't even know what web number it's on, but if you want all of that type of stuff, with the MetaMask browser extension and the DeFi and 12% API and stake this token, that is not us. That is not what we're doing in our group. God bless you. I hope you make a lot of money. But there are other groups that are specifically into that type of stuff, right? Whether it's crypto or whatever. There are people who just focus on healthcare. There are people who just focus on communications. Right? There are just communication stuff that's out there. There's AI people, robotics people. So when I started, it was just what you said, whether I was investing or not, which I don't think I said this, but I psychotically have invested in over 1,500 companies. So I was a very big fan of investing small checks into a lot of deals. And I can tell you the reasoning, if you want to talk about this, and looking for signaling, which is what they call it when you invest, and being the last few $1,000s in an oversubscribed deal is very powerful. Okay. But it's really cool to see the trends, because the whole food app restaurant tech thing, I was able to see that through the angel investing before it was what it is today, and you would see in Europe, Deliveroo is a new startup that's coming around. You know what I mean? DoorDash. Postmates before Uber acquired them. I invested in them. So many of that was going on everywhere. Same thing with the buy now, pay later and Klarna. And it's the Klarna of Asia, and it's the Klarna of Africa, and it's the Klarna of this country, right? That's what you get a lot of in angel investing. It's the X of Y, and you're able to kind of see this stuff, whether it's robotic stuff, or anything, right? Anything that you imagine. And I really did value and still do value seeing what sort of innovation is coming out of everywhere, and I'm not really a big sci-fi person, but that's why a lot of VCs and angel investors and people in this space read sci-fi, because it foretells where we're going.
It's super interesting. So I love that you're focusing purely on Bitcoin. So you basically just have like Bitcoin only, but in there everything. So not just Lightning, but also like, I don't know, like self-custody solutions, exchanges, like all that.
For sure. So, when you think Bitcoin, I know Lightning Ventures, right? You'd think it'd be just Lightning, but it's really all things Bitcoin. So, we co-syndicated a deal for Blockstream. We have done Foundation Devices. Actually, we have it open right now. It'll be closing soon, in the hardware wallet space, exchanges, infrastructure. We haven't really done too much mining. We helped a deal for, it wasn't called Ocean then, it was called Mummelin. Luke Dashur, and Mechanic, they're all over the news these days. We were able to help out a little bit. and put that investment in front of our people who loved it and supported it. That was the round Jack Dorsey invested in. But we don't really do much mining. It's just not really my flavor, to be honest with you. It's just not the part of the Bitcoin ecosystem that I personally love and am knowledgeable and confident on. And sometimes we get a lot of that. We get, hey, I've got these shipping containers that are in the middle of the Nevada desert, and we're going to trap this natural gas, and we're going to throw a bunch of S9. Like, that's just not for me. It's not that it's a bad deal, and we have a lot of people who specialize in that type of stuff. They do mining. That's what they do. And it's cool to be able to help that entrepreneur and forward it along to someone else and say, hey, you should talk to them about it. But fun, simple stuff like spin the wheel and get sats back. That we love, at least I love. So you kind of get to learn what VC's particular flavor is.
That's super interesting. And you said 1,500 companies you now wrote a check for. That's a lot, a lot of checks.
Yeah, but it's cool though, because you can kind of take literally anything and you can tie it back to something, right? Whether it's a super app of El Salvador, or whether it's clothes that you wear that are basically a mini Faraday cage that block radiation and things that are in your house, right? And they also make bed sheets. So when you're sleeping in your bed sheet, you know that you're kind of being shielded from any Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, whatever, signals that are in your house. Like, that's a real company, and they're actually doing well. Glasses that filter out the red light, or daylight computer, which is a whole device like a tablet, that has like no blue light detection. There's just so many, whether it's men's skincare products or alcohol with no alcohol, believe it or not. When I started investing, the trend was higher alcohol content. It was, the beers had ridiculously high alcohol content. Everything was higher alcohol content. And now the trend is the other way, where I'm investing in things like gin and tequila companies that have no alcohol. It's just so different the way that things can change, So when you think about 1,500 companies, and I'm like a Rain Man with a lot of this stuff, you think about any industry, and there's an investment in my portfolio somewhere, whether it's drone delivery or, there's just something in there, and it's a future bet on. I've indexed all the founders and these technologies, and it's cool to see them do well.
Is there, you get that question probably a lot, but is there one company that you're currently most excited about?
No, there isn't. There isn't a Lightning Ventures company that I'm most excited about. I love them all and I root them all on. And sometimes you have little to no communication with a company. Strike, for example, Strike, they saw us as the best way to allow small check investors to invest in the company. Like, it was a nice thing that they wanted to do when they were doing that big round. It was a big valuation. It was a big round. They said, let's carve out a little piece and let's give it to the Lightning Ventures people to allow them to participate on nearly the same terms as the big venture capitalists in that round. If you were in Lightning Ventures, you could invest 2,000 or 1,000 or 5,000 or whatever into Strike on nearly those same terms. Okay. I've never gotten an update from Strike. I've never gotten an investor update. Nothing. There's zero communication. And that's okay, because that's how it goes, right? When you are a small, and I mean very small, minority investor in a company like that at that scale, you're not going to get information rights. You're not going to get quarterly updates, and you just want to stay out of their way. I'm not going to send a message to anyone over there and ask for my update. Okay. There's plenty of stuff in the public space, and that's just life. On the other hand, maybe there's an early stage company like Fountain, right? I don't know if you use Fountain for your podcast or not. Very cool. Oscar formerly went through YC with a previous startup. Oscar and Nick, really cool founders. Oscar's religious with updates. I mean, you get an investor update from Oscar like every month, right? Because that was one thing that he learned in YC was it's a healthy exercise to sit down once a month and write an investor update. It doesn't have to be 10 pages. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be charts and graphs and this and that, but just as a mental exercise once a month, what worked last month? What didn't work? Can we put a few numbers in there? Hey, here's how you can help us, and with those early stage founders, you can work with them a lot more, which is one of the really cool things about angel investing in general, is that if you send an email to, Uber with some of your feedback about their app, I mean, good luck, right? But if you invested in an early stage company in the Bitcoin space and you said, hey, it would be really cool if you added this button to your app. This is a little weird. I guarantee you will get a response and they will take your feedback. Guarantee you. So I always kind of liked that with the early stage stuff, is that you could actually make a difference and be impactful if you wanted to be.
The first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from Coin Vigilante represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what Bitbox did. Bitbox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a Bitbox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called MicroSeed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With MicroSeed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. And we have right now a summer sale going on for 15% off. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today for $186, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. I want to get now to the topic that I teased beforehand, and especially interesting to hear from you as you are actively investing in so many smaller companies. What do you think is the most noticeably change when we come from a fiat denominated world slowly to a Bitcoin denominated world, specifically for investors?
Okay, say that one more time.
I phrase it differently. We have now a fiat denominated world where we have venture capitalists, we have angel investors, and their hurdle rate of fiat is pretty low. So like outsmarting the fiat rate is really easy. You just like have to invest in anything and you win. But outsmarting Bitcoin, which is going up in value, is a lot harder because all of a sudden you have to make money on top of that. And if you invest in like, I don't know, 5 companies and like 2, 3 go bust, maybe the 2, 3 that don't go bust, like don't make enough return on the investment to actually make good for what you would just make with that Bitcoin. I think you made this example previously where like you could have had 5,000 Bitcoin if you just held the Bitcoin, versus now you are with 80, something like that were the numbers. But at the same time, if you invest in the right Bitcoin company, you make a lot more. How does the job, or like how does the world change for investing when you have Bitcoin as kind of the base layer as your own personal hurdle rate?
Well, okay, I don't think it's a very popular opinion, and I hope you don't, cut my throat for saying it, but I don't think that we're going to be measuring things on a Bitcoin standard for quite a long time. Okay, everything is still kind of measured in dollars. Whether you're pricing the S&P 500 or a Coca-Cola or a trip on Airbnb, it's not going to be displayed to you in 0.00457 or 382,000 sats for this hotel. I just don't see that. Okay, even the U.S. dollar outside of the US, everything is priced in Bitcoin. You have like European exchanges. And when you open the app, you're looking at Bitcoin priced in US dollars. I think that that's going to be around for a while. And I don't think that most investors are quite as savvy as what you are describing. Most investors, or just people with money who want to allocate capital to this space, they want to be LPs, they're investing in these funds. I don't think that they're really measuring everything that they do in Bitcoin like maybe we are psychotically. Okay, we are thinking about everything that we do in Bitcoin. Okay, if I got 8% back on a pair of Nike shoes that cost $100, however many years ago, okay, and I've now recouped 80% of that entire Nike shoe just by hodling the 8% reward in Bitcoin to where we're at today, I'm a psychotic person. Okay, people are not thinking that way, and I think it's going to be quite some time before people really do think about the CAGR rate. And, the reality is it's all a cycle, and it depends on when you invest in and what happens. So, can you outperform the Bitcoin price with a private company in a week and a half? Absolutely not. And if you had your choice, Robin, pick your favorite exchange, pick any Bitcoin company in the world right now, and you have 25 grand and they're your favorite company and you love Relay. Okay, whatever. Relay is your favorite company. You love them. Julian, they're the best. And you have 25 grand and you put that $25,000 into Relay versus buying $25,000 of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin pumps 10% next week, you might feel bad, but that's very foolish. Like, oh man, Bitcoin's up and I invested. You have no idea what's going to happen. And the thing is it takes a really long time. Like our first investment in Relay is up much more than the price of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is up substantial. We've invested in Relay a few times, but maybe we're 6x from our first investment, give or take. Let's just say it's 6x. The Bitcoin price is not 6x. But, what can happen now, right? The Bitcoin could shoot up. It could shoot up to 200,000. It could crash back down to 87. Like you have no idea. And the timing of when these exits happen, the timing of when you're going to be able to realize the gains. It's just kind of a way to offset your exposure, okay, and capitalize in other markets. Because there are going to be points in time where the Bitcoin price is down and you've got 3 IPOs and mergers on the horizon, and they're going to be nice times to be able to ring the register and bring back some money. And there's going to be other times where you invest at the top, into a Bitcoin startup, and you're going to have to wait. So it really, a lot of it has to do with timing. And if I didn't believe that investments in this space could outperform the price of Bitcoin, I wouldn't do this. I would do something else with my day. I'm not here to try and take your money, and get people to invest in these companies that are not going to outperform the price of Bitcoin. That's what we're here for. It's just so early. It's hard to point to the data at this point. But we're getting there, and we're going to have some serious exits soon. And I don't know if it's going to be riding on the waves of the treasuries, right? And a lot of these companies are going to find a way to go public sooner by also adding a Bitcoin corporate treasury play to it, but get them to the public markets. I don't know if that's going to be the way that it works, or if it's just going to be consolidation in the space. But at some point in time, there's going to be a lot more data points than the limited ones that we have right now. We need a few more IPOs and exits. Is Blockstream going to go public and be worth $1 billion? That'll be a great case study. Investing in Blockstream Series A versus Blockstream in the public markets, and then we'll be able to put apples to apples.
Yeah, it's a good point. Of you don't. It's just a very different game, and you cannot even compare those two. It's like with way higher reward that you can basically get in a smaller company that you get in earlier, and it's a lot higher risk than Bitcoin. Do you see any difference in the investors that do those Bitcoin angel investings versus the investors that do non-Bitcoin stuff, like the space stuff or anything of that you saw?
Yeah, well, first off, they're not watching the Bitcoin price 24 hours a day, the other investors, and they're also not measuring everything in Bitcoin. So if you're pitching your Bitcoin venture fund, pitching it to those people is a heck of a lot easier than pitching it to Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners already are like, well, how are you going to outperform the price of Bitcoin? And maybe there's some strategy where a percentage of the fund, uninvested fund, is sitting in Bitcoin, and maybe there's other ways to potentially get some upside. But by the way, that goes against you too. When Bitcoin was, what was it, 68,000, whatever it was in that last run up before everything blew up, and everyone was so sure that it was going to 100, there was a lot of like, oh, we're going to hold a percentage of this in Bitcoin in this venture fund. How did that work out for them at that point? Maybe they got out. Maybe there was some stop loss thing or something that happened there. But our fund was held in cash. Our fund was in cash, and we deployed that cash, all the way through that bear market. And I can't even imagine if I was like, oh, we're going to raise this fund and denominate it in Bitcoin, and we're going to hold Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin just got crushed. There's really no, it's just so much can happen. So much can happen. But I think that the investors who are focused on space and other things, they like Bitcoin, and they're fully thinking in dollars. They're fully thinking in dollars. If they invest $10,000 and they get a 10x and they get 100K back, they're thrilled. And they're not looking at what Bitcoin's going to do over that same time period. But the other thing to remember is no matter what, a lot of times it's a very long horizon. Okay. So if you're going to put that 25,000 into Coin Corner or Relay or pick a company, you should go in with like the mindset that it's going to be locked up for quite a while. Okay. You should think about it as 10 years. Mentally prepare yourself that money is gone for 10 years. And maybe in 3 years you get an exit. and maybe you get 5x your money, or, 4x your money in 2 years. Maybe you get a nice small return on it in a relatively short amount of time, but the best outcomes are going to take a long time. There's a great book. It's called Angel. And $25,000 into Uber's seed round was 100 million at the IPO, so that's a lot of cake. And that took 10 plus years. And maybe along the way, there were some secondary options where you could have got some cash out or taken something off the table. But the best ones are really going to take a long time. So when you have a group of limited partners who are beating down your door, when am I going to get my money back? Where are the exits? When am I going to get my money back? And you point to things in the portfolio like, hey, we invested at this valuation with this company and now it's worth X and it's great and it looks phenomenal and it's tracking well. It's still not money being returned to them, right? It's still on paper. And we need to get some of that money back to the LPs across all of the funds and all the Bitcoin VCs that are out there. We need a few more exits before they really start feeling good again and they want to really start investing.
Interesting. How do you actually look at earlier companies or like startups holding Bitcoin versus just reinvesting all of it in growth? Do you see there's some patterns there?
Well, you have to invest. You have to invest in growth and you have to fund your payroll and you have to manage your own treasury. And look, right now it's great, right? Bitcoin price goes up. Everyone's runway is extending. Everyone's thrilled. Everything is great. But that goes the other way too. Okay. We just went through it and it's like how quickly we forget, like things change so quickly. We invested in Scarce City. They do, all the artwork, and the auctions and at all the Bitcoin conferences, all the really cool art gallery stuff, is them. They're the Sotheby's of Bitcoin collectibles and art. And they're a very, very fun company. Well, ever since we invested, 100% of their balance sheet was held in Bitcoin, like 100%. And that was through the run up to 60 or 70 when everything was great to back down to, 16,000. They were making ramen jokes, to their investors and whatever that they weren't eating. And now it's back up again. Right. So look, it goes both ways, and you have to sell enough Bitcoin to pay your salaries every week. And hopefully you're running a cash flow or positive business where sometimes you're able to continue to stack, but it goes both ways. And I don't know of one Bitcoin startup that we've invested in that doesn't have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I don't have one company in our portfolio that has no Bitcoin. And look, I love that. And it's another positive for this sector specifically versus the space investors or the other people is indirectly you're getting access. We just did Orange Pill app on Thunder Funder. It's not confidential. It was in the deal memo. But, Matteo from Orange Pill app is running a profitable business. Okay. First off, it's profitable every month. And he's got like 4 Bitcoin in his corporate treasury, so that's great. You're getting exposure indirectly to a Bitcoin balance sheet. It's not a treasury play. He's not releasing Orange Pill app bonds, okay, to buy more Bitcoin. But it is definitely a positive and a way to get exposure, indirectly to Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And we love it. And I love a company who's doing that. Matt Hill from Start9 told me the other day, he said, we don't have Bitcoin on our balance sheet. He said, Bitcoin is our balance sheet, right? He probably wasn't the first person to say that, but that was what he said, and he's like, Muzz, I don't think we need to raise for a long time. Cause when we did that Series A way back when, we parked a bunch of it in Bitcoin and we're kind of set. So there are a lot of cases where that goes well and is great. And by the way, it goes the other way. So if we were sitting at that 70,000 when everyone thought it was going to 100 and you took too much, of your funds and put it in Bitcoin, you had to wait a while. I mean, look what we went through after that. And now, if you could hodl through or get through that, everything is great. But it takes responsibility to manage that corporate Bitcoin treasury, especially when you're a startup. I mean, it's your decision to YOLO or not.
It's interesting. Yeah, I actually talked last summer when I had Sailor on. He talked about the concept of making your company immortal while adopting Bitcoin, because while your company might do bad, that might be the case where you can live off your Bitcoin and you're gonna have a solid foundation for your company, and you have enough time to figure things out and get a product market fit back and then be profitable again. So it obviously goes both ways, because maybe your company does bad exactly when Bitcoin also goes down in the bear market. You never know. But Bitcoin gets more and more stable. I think those crashes and all those things get less and less. Like, I have no clue, but like it feels like that as the bigger money comes in. Also, the run-ups are not as crazy anymore. We don't have those weird like 50, 100% run-ups in a week just because, yeah, we went from a jet ski to an aircraft carrier, as George Boudin says, and it's just like harder to move now. And the harder it is to move, I guess more businesses will just adopt it as a bigger part of their treasury strategy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, not having a business and just having Bitcoin, that's not something that I really want to invest in. I mean, I think that these Bitcoin treasury things are really interesting, and I think it's mostly interesting just because of the savings aspect for these companies. I mean, if I don't even know how many S&P 500 companies actually have any Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Not many, probably less than 10. I don't know.
It's just one, right? Like S&P 500 companies, you mean like just Tesla has it right now?
Is it just Tesla? I don't know if Coinbase.
Yeah.
I didn't know if Coinbase was in the S&P 500 or not. Or, you know, so like them adding Bitcoin is so cool. You know, it's just such a great way to preserve when some of that cash comes in, and there's companies like Microsoft and Apple and all of them with tons of cash, Tesla. I mean, when it comes running for Bitcoin, look out. But I'm not really interested in buying some of these low cap companies that are all of a sudden treasury companies. You know, it's a healthcare company. They bought 20 Bitcoin and now the stock is going to go nuts. Like that's just not really for me. I would just love it if it was like, didn't have the press and they were just quietly converting some of their uninvested capital into Bitcoin, rather than like, hey, this is a hotel in Mexico. They bought 21 Bitcoin and now it's a Bitcoin treasury company. Like, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on that. I mean, I don't think anyone can really do it better than Saylor, period.
It's S&P Coinbase is actually in the S&P 500. I was not aware of that. Okay. Weirdly enough, there's no. Okay, Block seems to be also in the. Is Block also in the S&P 500?
Block.
Wow.
Yeah, I bet.
Wow, I was always, like I always said it's only Tesla, but apparently there's more than Tesla.
It's probably less than 10.
Yeah, it seems like they're 3 currently, with strategy soon 4. But yeah, it's just like a quick search that I just do now. But yeah, I spreaded fake news the last couple of episodes, I guess.
That's all right. You got the correction out now.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really interesting. How long is Lightning Venture already doing that? Like, how long are you and the company already investing in like early Bitcoin companies?
So started in 2021 and started with that pilot fund in our first syndicate, which was actually Amber. They're a Bitcoin only exchange in Australia. That was our first syndicate deal. And we started deploying and building the syndicate, and that's still the name of the game, is get the best people in there. And, you know, we went through a very hot market where everything was filling and it was very competitive. And then we went through a dead market And now we are still coming out of a dead market. Lots of founders, lots of people were still, it's very hard to close a round. I mean, it's not that it's not happening. It is happening, but it's still a very challenging fundraising environment. And a lot of it is some of this distraction. You know, people want Bitcoin treasuries. You know, they want to invest in Bitcoin. They want to own more Bitcoin. They're looking at these treasuries. They're not really looking so much at the illiquid startup companies, which I think are going to be the big winner, but we'll have to see.
I asked it because I just wanted to see how many cycles you kind of went through. Do you see any big differences in investing in those companies, and how those companies are also doing when the price is ripping up from like 16K to like 120K or wherever we are right now, versus when we crashed from 70K to 12K?
Yeah, completely different. And when we started, or before, then it was very hot. Okay. So Robin, you have your pitch deck and everyone knows your face and everyone's a fan of you. And you got a couple other people in there and you're going to raise $1.6 million pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-everything. That was happening. Those were a lot of those rounds, which was pre-product. And you know, the only things I don't particularly like pre-product, pre-revenue. I like some revenue on a chart. But that's just me. You know, someone like Max Webster, he's a great, very fun venture capitalist in the space, San Francisco background, only focused on Bitcoin now, some AI and Nostr. He loves pre-product. He loves everything. He loves to be as early as possible. He doesn't care. Let it go to 1 billion or let it go to zero. He doesn't care. That's his philosophy. He swings for the fences. I don't like that. I like, hey, we're a live exchange in this country. Our revenue's not huge, but look at it on the chart. That's when I like to come in, right? That's my sweet spot. And after this last crash, it just got very difficult for companies and projects to raise unless they had a real business. What a concept. So, you know, the people who kind of came in with pre-product, pre-this, pre-that, they all of a sudden were unable to raise those rounds anymore and secure that funding, because remember, you had Silicon Valley Bank that was blowing up. You had so many things that were happening all simultaneously here. And besides that, you had the existing companies that maybe they already raised when it was very easy. Okay, it was easy money and it was easy to raise. And now they need more money. And they can't get more money until they show some pathway to profitability or have something to show for it. So it kind of forced those companies to really get their business together. Like, hey, when we raised, it was easy and that was where we're at. And now we have to have something now. So it really tightened it up. Eventually valuations matter. Okay. And growth and traction and numbers matter. And that's what these sort of phases, these bear markets and crisis bring to the forefront. It forces you to be real with your company and what you have.
I love that. For me, pre-product is just crazy. It's easy to tell a nice story and have an idea, and it's super hard to execute on that very thing. And even if you even if you just got started and just got your couple first customers, like and I think Elon Musk made that popular, that saying. He said like it's easy to build like a nice prototype and it's super hard to build like 1 million of them. The same I see the same thing with podcasting. It's super easy to do one podcast. You invite one guy, like you record it like super duper easy. You just put it out there. But having as me a daily Bitcoin podcast where I go every day consistently for now 542 episodes, kind of like this product thing where it's like rolling out every single day. You're consistent, like you come in problems, like you get sick and all those things come your way, and like funding gets up and down. And obviously now it's running really good and also running without me with like the post-production team that we have. But you go through all that and you're like, yeah, it's super hard to make this one product that is super easy to make as a mass production, because now you have to figure out an editor, you have to figure out the publishing team, you have to figure out the shorts and the clips and all that thing, and all of this other 4 people have to work together to do this thing every single day. And then you are like, okay, the process and the infrastructure to facilitate it every single day, that's the hard part. Coming up with and yeah, so pre-product for me, that's just crazy and fiat mindset for me.
I give you like a ton of credit for being able to do a show every day and do what you just said. It's so difficult. I mean, it's hard to especially get it to be like a machine. I mean, we do an episode every once in a while. We have no idea what we're doing. Editing and YouTube descriptions and what time do we publish it? And we don't know how to do clips and little things at the beginning. That's not what we're doing, right? I mean, we're trying to invest in companies. We have like a million other things that we're focused on. We don't know how to do it, the way that it needs to be done. It's very difficult.
That's super.
So kudos.
It's super cool. And I tell everyone, because early content creators just ask me, okay, like, should I do it everything myself or should I outsource it? I'm like, yeah, like, it's better for your soul to just outsource the editing and the post-production. Don't deal with it. If you make it perfect, you have to hire people and you do it yourself with the team and you coach them. But that's the hard path. And it's only for lunatics like me and a few others. But yeah, we have one question that I asked every single guest that comes on as the first time. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Oh boy, what can you learn besides Bitcoin? I mean, are we talking spirituality here? We have
a lot of different directions that people take it. People go the family route, people go the mindset route, people go interesting, surprising skills. People go like whatever you want to take it. I purposely left that question very open. Only that it should not have to do anything with Bitcoin, even though most guests mention Bitcoin once or twice in the answer, which is funny.
I love spirituality and, for lack of better words, weird mystical stuff. I love Kabbalah. I went to the Kabbalah Center in New York for many years and taken lots and lots of classes. And it's all about how to think and your soul. And Kabbalah basically tied in all the things that I was interested in previously. It never gets old. It's reincarnation. It's the Old Testament or the 5 books of Moses. It's palm and face reading. It's astrology. It's why am I born? Why were you born in the conditions and place that you are in? And it's kind of like the code behind the screen, right? You go to a website and there's what you see there, and then there's actually the code that runs it. And we loved it, and we still do it, and it's not something that you can unlearn, and it ties in lots of stuff. So I love trying to test the boundaries of what is reality, right? If you are somebody who, for example, is very impatient, and you are always getting upset in an impatient situation, right? And you find yourself constantly in situations that trigger that, whether it's traffic or when you walk into the store, there's always the line in front of you. Okay. So that correction that you've identified with the patience, if you actually, instead of being reactive in those situations, just don't and aren't reactive, okay, and you pause, it's bizarre to find that you will get less of those situations in your life moving forward. And it's kind of like a video game. So once you identify those type of corrections and things that your soul is down here to kind of work through, and you actually try to work through them, it's really, really miraculous to see them start to go away. So I like to think about this stuff a lot, and I love to really test it. And that might be something like you're the type of person who doesn't like social events. So you always get invited to things and, hey, Robin, come out. Robin, come to this party. Robin, come here. And you always want to say no, right? Like your instinct is always no, and you like to be at home and whatever. So you have to break that. You have to break that by saying yes, right? And once you do those things, or maybe it might be the opposite. You might be the person who always likes to say yes. You say yes to everyone. Anyone asks you to do something, you always say yes, right? You are to say no. And I have one quick story, but I don't know if we have time for it here, and I don't know if anyone cares.
Of course.
But,
go ahead.
I love this story, okay? And it's about a king and his finger. Okay. So this is very important. Okay. This is like the most important thing that we've talked about here. You ready? So there's this king, and he goes out on a hunting trip. Okay. And he injures his finger. He cuts his finger, and he goes back. The king, of course, the king has his own healer. The king calls in the healer and says, hey, what's going on with my finger? Healer bandages it up. The king says everything's going to be okay, right? And then the healer says, yes, it's always okay. Okay, it's always good. All right, so a couple of weeks go by, finger's not looking good, it's getting black, goes back to the healer. He's like, what's going on with my finger? Healer says, all right, let's change the bandage, let's fix it up. And the king says, you told me I was going to be okay, right? And he's like, of course, it's always okay. Everything is always okay. Okay, 2 weeks goes by, the finger is just fully black. The king's freaking out, brings in the healer. The healer is like, we have to amputate your finger. The king's like, I can't believe this. Like, you told me everything was going to be okay. I never want to see you again. Cuts off his finger and says, take this healer, banish him to the tombs. I never want to see this guy again. He's gone forever. Okay. So now the king goes out on another hunting trip. Okay. The king goes out on another hunting trip and is captured by a neighboring tribe. Neighboring tribe takes the king. They got him up on the thing. You know, they're going to sacrifice this king to their god. And this neighboring tribe's healer, their high priest, does a once over check and walks around the king and sees that the king is missing a finger and says, we cannot sacrifice this guy to our gods because he's impure and he's missing the finger. Cut him down. Let him go. So they cut the king down. The king runs back. He says, get the healer out of the tombs. He says, losing that finger was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm thrilled. This was fantastic. This was the best thing ever. And that's the secret to life, is always staying there. Okay. No matter what, you know, you go into something, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing. This is going to be the best podcast. This is going to be the best show, the best this, the best that. And then it's like not that good, right? Because you're too far the other way, you know, or, oh my God, I can't believe I lost my job, or this person left me, or this happened, right? You can't see. So when that person leaves you, okay, and you're so upset and this is the worst thing that happened, fast forward 5 months later, you're looking back saying, thank God they left. Now I got the right person. Now I got this fantastic. Thank God I got fired from that job because look what happened. Now I'm here, right? We can't see the whole picture. And that's where we have to stay at all times. And just know that you never know what's coming, right? A lot of times it seems like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen. And so many times you look back on it and was like, that was perfect. That was perfect that it happened that way. It had to happen that way. And, you know, and I find that staying in that mindset is, you know, first off, it's hard to do. But you never know, you know, you're driving home and you miss the exit. You miss the exit on the freeway and you want to get upset. I can't believe you don't even know what was at that exit. You have no idea the fate or the reason why you missed that exit at that moment, you know? And just trying to stay in that. So I love spirituality, and I don't know. That's pretty much it.
I love that. because I'm the weird guy that sees everything positively. It's literally whatever happens. I'm always like, hey, it's not that bad. Like if someone gets in the wheelchair and he has to be in there all their life, I'm like, you could be dead. Like like your life is great because you have a life. I literally talked today or I will just say it. Like I talked with Imo today from Relay, for like the chief growth officer, and he has glasses. Like usually he doesn't wear glasses. And I'm like, oh, you wear glasses? And he told me like how blind he actually is, but he still sees. Like he is like 15 or 16 or something like that. I hope he doesn't mind that I share that. Otherwise, I will just cut it out later. But he basically my first reaction to that is like, hey, but you can see, right? you have glasses, but you're almost blind, but you are not blind. Like that's a positive thing. And it's so weird when we think about gratefulness. Gratefulness is for me like, imagine that something you have right now, you don't have anymore. Then you're grateful for that thing. It's like very hard to be grateful for something that you have without imagining it being lost. Like me imagining what if like YouTube and all podcast platforms like all decide together, let's ban Robin completely from all platforms, which is not that unrealistic, but hopefully it does not happen. Then like, oh, like shit, I'm super grateful that there's another day where my podcast is alive and it works. So and this if what it's like if this bad thing wouldn't happen, maybe a way worse thing would have happened. So with the bad exit and the fun and all that, like I love that. I'm all for that story. I really love that.
You know, if your podcast did get banned and kicked off of all these platforms for whatever reason, you know, the fun part would be looking back 90 days later and you being like, man, that led you to wherever you were. Right. I mean, you know, you never know where it's going to lead you. And the part of the being thankful, you know, they say Kabbalistically like that, like being thankful for what you have, like protects it. You know, every time that you're thankful for something in your life, you're protecting that as a blessing, to basically keep it, you know, is what they say. So I'm thankful that you had me on.
Thank you so much. And now we're coming to the end routine of the podcast, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, give an example of a successful orange pilling attempt and an unsuccessful one and explain the difference, what happened there.
A successful orange pilling event. Okay, so this was kind of cool. There was a bar here in Miami, and keep in mind, my orange pilling days are kind of over. You know, I mean, that was a long time ago, but there was a place here. They didn't serve alcohol. It was a kava bar. Okay, I don't know if you have those or know what that is, but anyway, so I wanted to tip the bartender, and I wanted to give him some Bitcoin. He'd heard of Bitcoin, but he didn't have a wallet anymore. He used to. So what do you do for a successful orange pilling, right? Are we going to go non-custodial? We're going to get liquidity and we're going to, no, right? Because we're not going to write down and go through all this. And I wanted to tip them. So what's the default? Well, how about Cash App? Do you have Cash App here in the US? Usually there's, you know, Bitcoin is easy and it's built in, but for some reason, sometimes it doesn't always work. And there's some issues with Cash App. So it's not quite as easy and built into everyone's phone. So then, you know, we could try Strike and we could do Blink or we could do all these different things. But I got him on a Strike wallet immediately that worked. And I tipped him, you know, $20 or whatever it was in Bitcoin. Did not link his bank account, did not go through any of the other stuff there, did not verify anything, but hey, here's $20. That's your Strike account. It's pretty cool. And every time I would go in there, I would give him a few more dollars, right? I would always tip him specifically in Bitcoin to his Strike wallet. And one time I came in there, and keep in mind, he never said anything. You know, he never said he was doing anything else, right? It was just like, I was the Bitcoin guy and he would tip him, and the price was dumping. And I came in and I went to order my drink, and without saying anything, he just looked at me and says, I bought the dip. And I had never talked to him about anything. I didn't link his bank account. I didn't know anything. We never talked about YouTube channels and learning. And I just came in on a day that the price was down big, and he was just like, I bought the dip. And that was it, and it didn't have to really orange pill him. I didn't have to go through every step and we're going to DCA and we're going to do a few dollars a day. There was none of that. It was just got him a wallet, tipped him, kept it in his mind, and his mind does the rest. Like, people will do the rest. That's why gifting Bitcoin is so powerful, right? Whether it's Swan or someone else for Christmas, give someone a code to redeem. Hey, it's $200 worth of Bitcoin. Force them to set up that Swan account or whatever account it is, get that $200 worth of Bitcoin, and then they start thinking, right? So just getting it to him. There wasn't too much of like, oh, you got to follow this podcast and you got to listen to this guy and all that stuff. It worked out perfectly. And when he said I bought the dip like that, I almost lost it. It was really funny.
That's really cool.
Not working. Well, I have two that come to mind. And so I was getting these Reiki treatments, which is like an energy healing kind of thing. And I really wanted to pay this lady in Bitcoin. I really wanted to pay her in Bitcoin. So I got her set up, and I was just really hoping that if I'm paying $80 or $100 every time I go there, that it would start to work. Right. And it would impact, and she would get it. And, got her all set up and started paying her, and she just kept selling it, to where, every time I would pay her, I would say, hey, can I see your, can I pay you again? And I would just notice that she kept really selling it as the price was going up. I don't know why she was selling it. Maybe she needs the money for something, but I really didn't think so. I don't really think that she needed it. But just watching the price go up and me paying her, it just didn't work. And I don't know. The other time is I gave some Bitcoin to my father, and I gave him $50 worth of Bitcoin. And, the price went up 10%, and he immediately was like, I want the profits. And I was just pleading with him not to sell it. And that would be worth quite a bit more today. But, it just didn't work. I mean, I guess it can't all be saved, right?
Hodling is the hardest sports in the world, I guess.
Hodling should be an Olympic sport.
It should be an Olympic sport, yeah. Thank you so much, Mas, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and Lightning Ventures?
Sure. So it's Mike Jarmaz on Twitter. Same thing with LTNG Ventures or Thunder Funder CF. It's ltng.ventures is the website. You can fill out a form there if you're looking to raise capital. We have a scout program. Maybe of somebody raising funds. You can earn a percentage of the deal. That's kind of a fun way to break into VC and all that good stuff. We are launching like 2 new websites soon. Okay, I'm really excited about the new stuff that we're building in our secret lab. So we're going to have something really cool coming from Lightning Ventures. But if you want to get in the fold there, just fill something out, and we'll send you an invite and get you in the fold. The other thing is Thunder Funder, thunderfunder.com. If you're looking to raise capital, again, new websites are coming. They look really sick. They're not done yet. But yeah, you can sign up for Thunder Funder. And once we have a deal there, we've only done 2. We did the Orange Pill app, and we did Jolts. Jolts is doing the stable coins on Bitcoin, on Lightning with Taproot assets and things. But we have a lot of really cool deals in the pipeline for Thunder Funder, like Bitcoin trading cards, LN Bits. We're talking to a bunch of really cool companies. So we're hoping to do that, as well as adding Bitcoin as a way to actually invest, right? Using Bitcoin and not just being stuck in the fiat world. But that's hard to do because it's a governed, regulated platform. So we're being real creative with that. But that's it. That's what I got going on.
Thank you so much, Mas, for your time. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.